All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of Car Talk. I'm your host, Big Mike, right here with
Ryan Bossery from Rywire.
This is a very important episode, you guys. I mean, obviously, the different topics, the different subjects we talk about, they're important for different reasons. But this specific one is pressing due to time and legalities. And we're talking about the RPM Act. Now, if when we say, or when you read the title, RPM Act, if that doesn't ring a bell, if you don't immediately know generally even what that is, what it means, etc., that right there is a problem. And it's a problem that we are going to address in our way right here. So the RPM Act is in practice fighting against this like addendum to the Clean Air Act. Okay. Right. The Clean Air Act has been in practice for 2020 was 50 years. Okay. They introduced it in.
It was proposed in 1963
and ended up going through in 70.
In 70, which is 50 years.
50 years. Now, we all have become more conscious about the environment, our planet, etc. And that's a very good thing. But what we're talking about here is an addition, the EPA and the way that they're going about things. Basically, about 5 years ago, I think it was, they started kind of adding and then enforcing this modification of automotive.
Right. They were getting pressure, so then they kind of began implementation.
Yes.
Of the Clean Air Act.
In the context of automotive modification.
Yeah, in the context of automotive modification. So then if you guys kind of been following, you could kind of start seeing for the last 5 to 6 years, hearing about people getting in trouble.
Like shops and people getting in big trouble.
Yeah. Big fines.
Huge fines.
Some things are kept kind of low and others are pretty common knowledge.
Yeah. So this isn't far off in the sense that because you may not have heard about it, that it isn't a big deal, because there are shops that are literally fighting multi-million-dollar fines. They're trying to, they haven't been, it's not a cease and desist. It's not a warning. They have been full-blown fined and they're trying to fight it. So this is active and real. Yeah. We know someone who was hit with $1 million fine.
Yeah, but we shouldn't say who it is. But.
Sure. $1 million fine.
And I know of a lot of other people.
Yes, too. Yes. And so what we're talking about here is, in the context of what the Clean Air Act is saying, is that it is illegal to modify and defeat the emissions equipment and parameters that have been set. And what the RPM Act is trying to do is state that if a vehicle is not being used on the highway, if it is for off-road use only,
or racing purposes
only, which is, a lot of us sort of might think of it as, we think of the local meets and we think of a couple guys that do Time Attack and, maybe VTech Club and, SCCA Autocross. That is a tiny portion of what this industry is. The industry is massive. And what it would effectively do is wipe it out. Like literally wipe it out, because it is enforcing that the manufacturing of any item or parts or electronics or anything.
Manufacturing and then the sales and then also the installation of.
Right. That change emissions parameters. Okay. And the problem with that is that it sounds good. I mean, if you didn't know any better, you would be like, I want to pass a bill or an act that wipes out these polluters. But there have even been Congress that have said this is like a very small amount of the pollution that we're talking about here, right? And it's a very major problem because,
well, there's a lot of different pollutions. Okay. There's agricultural pollution,
mining,
there's automotive,
manufacturing,
there's automotive in our, small little racing industry.
Yes.
There's mining. There's a lot of different, just the sourcing of electric car batteries.
Yes.
There's plenty of emissions.
So the Clean Air Act is addressing, so it's not just about us. We're sort of us being, aftermarket modifying non-street car type of people. that we're just falling under the umbrella now. They're starting to address it. But the Clean Air Act has done a ton of good. And it's addressing all kinds of things, and it's been doing it for decades. But the problem is, Ryan brought up, we were kind of going over this, and he brought up a really good point. It's in politics and laws and bills and all that shit. There are these massive bills with like so many bullet points.
Yeah, a lot of them are so detailed. When they send you that book,
have you guys ever read them?
The size of a Bible, and you're expected to know everything that there is about a proposition.
Yes.
Or whatever, a bill or a
how many people are going to read every paragraph, every bullet, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that within that, after maybe page 39 is when it states something that you may totally be like, wait a minute, that's too far or that's too much. But you may never even get to that, which, okay, that totally falls on us if we are guilty of that.
Right. If you want to vote, which you're legally allowed to do.
Yes.
If you decide that you don't want to read that bill or proposition in its entirety and do research getting through all the different facets.
Yes.
That's on you.
It is. But the problem is, but it's on you.
99% of people aren't going to dig that deep into every single subject. But there is subjects that hit close to home.
Yes.
And these are the ones that you should invest your time to dig into.
And this is applicable, obviously, to any bill, any law that's passed that we all have the right as voters to fight or help make law. And what Ryan says is a very solid point, because it is on us if we don't read it. But the practical effect is
that most of us won't.
Most people won't. And so if they're saying how it's presented to them, oh, this RPM Act is just undermining the ability to fight pollution and save our planet. If someone words it like that, if a person's not into cars and doesn't understand what that the context of what that would mean, they're going to be like, well, I don't want to vote for an act that's going to undermine the ability to help save the ozone and the planet.
Yeah, I think that, everybody in their right mind, I'd say sign me up for 2.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We all want to save the planet in their own ways until you find out.
Of course. Until
that,
you
by the way,
dig and figure out really what these problems consist of and the things that they're leaving out.
Right.
Where there could be even bigger problems. So maybe lobbyists are hitting that and it's never getting through, or we just don't know.
Yes.
But there's a big problem, and we feel that they're only addressing a small part of it and trying to eliminate something so minuscule when there's a much greater problem potential.
Okay, minuscule in the sense that marine pollution, manufacturing pollution, big industry pollution, that is something...
Right, like dumping waste into our oceans.
Which is happening right now legally and illegally, by the way. So fight that before, a bunch of 1.6 liters, that
may or may not have a catalytic converter some of the time.
Now, to be fair, right? They are talking about, we all know the whole for off-road use only, right? All these parts that we buy, unless it has a carb number, we all know that for people outside of California and all of the states that have that type of thing, honestly, you might have absolutely no idea because your particular state has no emissions laws. What you need to understand is that if this goes unchecked, that won't matter anymore. Do you guys understand that? So for the people in Florida, for the people, that you guys have been able to do amazing, fun shit, what you have to understand is this will outdo state law. This is federal. And yes, it might take some time before they go enforcing it, but they have already fined people. They've already started in various states. So it's not like they're clustering in one place or the other. And because of online distribution, they can target you because you distribute to any state. This is very real, you guys. So if your state is like, no emissions, people are out there, just driving, doing whatever you want, it will end that effectively, okay?
Yeah.
It will very much end that. And it does not just stop in a state like California that has crazy smog rules. This is bigger than just a state. This is a federal change because the Clean Air Act, like we said, is 50 plus years old. But about 5 years ago, it was in 2015. Let me reference this real quick. The EPA ruled that converting a vehicle designed for street use into a dedicated race car went against the Clean Air Act. Listen to that. Converting a vehicle designed for street use, which is effectively everything.
Yeah, everything except
other than some kit cars, it is everything.
A GT3 Cup car.
Yes.
And
is a street car.
Oh, well, no, it's not. That one's
the
not.
Cup car.
Cup car's not. So
which is the one that's
you guys have a GT3 Cup or a white body Civic.
Okay.
Then it's pretty much like...
Which, I mean...
It's 99.9% of everything that we would ever touch or see. It's what we all have. It's what we all do, okay? Converting a vehicle designed for street use into a dedicated race car. So it's acknowledging that you're changing it into a dedicated race car. And that doesn't matter. This is basically saying it doesn't matter if you're turning it into a race car and you're going to use it for off-road purposes only or racing. Yeah, like that. It's saying that doesn't matter.
That's not the point to them. That's the point to us. That's not the point of this. In 2015, they ruled that converting a vehicle that was designed as a street car, which is effectively everything, into just converting it into a dedicated race car goes against the act, which means that all of those carb numbers and it's, I'm not on the street. You are now breaking the law, and one that they want to enforce. Do you guys understand that? So a lot of laws that are on the books, nobody's really enforcing it. They want to and have effectively begun enforcing this.
Right. Okay? So your dedicated race car that you're like, oh, well, it doesn't see public highways because it's all four wheels off the ground. It's towed in an enclosed trailer to the racetrack. Still not
correct. Your enclosed or open car, if they were enforcing it, you could get pulled over because they can tell that it's a race car. You have to you guys understand that. It doesn't matter if you're trailering. When they see it, it is a car that was converted into a race car. It's illegal.
Illegally.
It is illegal. The whole thing is illegal. So what does that mean? Are we all going to drive around in enclosed trailers? But you guys are missing it. All the tracks will close because racing is going to effectively become illegal, or the act of racing isn't. But if you're not allowed to have a race car, then there's no racing.
Like if a formula car is allowed to continue to race, then potentially maybe a track in the United States may stay open. Maybe if they can afford to do so, but 99.9 of them will not be able to afford to do so.
Correct.
Because they rely on the track day private event racers that are all racing 99.9 of them converted street vehicles,
which would immediately or by enforcement become obsolete, illegal, need to be removed from existence. Which, where the hell do they think all of these cars are going to go? I mean, I
crushing. Don't think that they care where they
presently,
as long as they're not here.
Presently, that's a very good point. That's sort of not even the issue right now. Is they're just going to be made illegal, and the industry will grind to a halt. Okay, and this is where we are now. If any of this has triggered you, if any of you are just like, wait, what? Okay, please look it up for yourself. RPM Act. Okay, the RPM Act stands for Recognizing the Protection of Motorsports.
Right.
So,
and this is something that's backed by SEMA, and you can read about that. Just do SEMA RPM Act, and you'll find a lot of information.
Take the time, you guys. It is imperative. This is not one of those things that you can be, idle by. When they first started this, over 200,000 people wrote letters to congressmen, and it passed. But it's been brought up again. And the fight doesn't just happen once. It won that time. It can lose. And that is a disaster of absolute proportions. Now, for those of you that watch and listen out of the United States, I already had this conversation with a gentleman, on my personal Instagram, and they were basically saying, well, that's not going to stop the rest of the world. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't say it was. We're talking about the United States.
A lot of all the best stuff is manufactured in the United States and Australia.
Okay. So the point that I brought up, so their angle was that's not going to stop other countries. So if anything, I think demand will go down.
A lot. I mean, by substantial amounts.
Okay. And then subsequently price will go down. And I said, if all the things manufactured in the States cease to be able to be manufactured, wouldn't that make supply go down? Therefore, demand would go up and price would go up?
And price would go up. Yeah. And I mean, also like what's interesting to me is the amount of components that are manufactured in China and, like Asia.
Yeah.
At like the raw material form.
Yeah.
All these companies that even like they make stuff in the United States, but a lot of their like electronics and stuff are made in China.
Yes.
And then maybe fitted in the United States or what have you. But that would take a huge toll in the aftermarket overseas as well, because the demand would drop and tons of those factories would actually probably go under.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, if you're wiping out what would essentially be an entire country worth of product volume, you're going to put out all kinds of business.
Yeah.
Okay.
All over the world.
Oh, yeah. It is this, you guys, this is a very serious thing. And I mean, take a break from what you're doing and spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Go to SEMA's website. Just type in SEMA RPM Act. You can read about it on their website. It'll be one of the first, if not the first link when you use those keywords. Mm-hmm. Look it up, read about it. Obviously, if you want to understand a little bit more about the Clean Air Act, take the time to do that. But it's really important because we're going to think about it in the ways that we know. We can't modify our cars. We're not even talking about the track. We're talking about the fact that the entirety of the product listing, the whole off-road use only thing becomes irrelevant.
Right.
The entirety of producing anything that alters emissions is illegal.
Right.
Think about that. So it won't even make it to us. It'll be like some black market shit.
Yeah.
We're talking about companies will have to fold instantly. Because you got the ones that have enough, balls and money to try to fight these fines that they've got. Many people don't have the money to fight in court. If it's 50, 80, 100,000 in lawyer fees, they'll just have to fold. So it is a very serious deal, and it's a serious deal right now, not later. Don't procrastinate. If you're already like, okay, fuck it, I want to know how do I stop it? You have to reach out to your local representative. And the best way to do that, aside from directly, because you can totally call them, literally call. I'm for the RPM Act. I'm for the RPM Act. This is actually how this works, you guys.
SEMA has a online form.
SEMA has an online form.
I think they'll submit it for you, or they'll tell you exactly what to do.
You can also go
to get to the right years.
Yes, you can also. So SEMA is a very organized, perfect way if you want to just go through one path, right? You can also go to votervoice.net, votervoice.net. Put it in the caption, put it in the, on our Instagram and stories and everything. I've been doing that the last few days. But you guys, read, please take the time.
I got an idea.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And then let's talk about the other side of it.
Sure.
And maybe like diesel and some things like that.
That's a very good point, you guys. This isn't just one-sided, right? We all want the environment and our planet to heal and to last as long as possible. And it isn't just like, well, we're car guys, so we got to be able to do it. It's deeper than that. And there are sides to it. But right now, before we come back from a break, votervoice.net, SEMA's website. If you're already just like, yo, I want to do something about it, that is how. Those are two ways to do it, okay? So when we come back, we'll go over the other side to the argument. We'll see you guys in a moment. Think Bigger podcast. This is a branch of the Think Bigger project that is a brand and a movement and an ideology that was created to better the community and the culture around it. How you behave in your relationships, how you build a car, how you do anything comes from the way that you think. And if you can start there, then everything else will follow.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Ryan from Rywire here, and today I have something really cool to show you. What I want to show you guys is that nothing that I'm doing here is so far-fetched that you guys can't do it at home. We don't have any CNC, there's no 5-axis machine here. I'm literally just using my brain and hand tools to get a really cool project done. Even in the most basic conditions, a beautiful outcome can arise.
All right, you guys.
We're back. We're kind of trying to talk a little bit about the other side of things. And, you know, there's some strong accusations. Is that the right word?
Accusations?
Accusations.
Yeah.
Accusations against the act, and, you know, saying that we're doing is we're, you know, just trying to, what does they call it? The defeat devices. And, you know, this should be outlawed and banned and et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, like a lot of that, I can totally see the point. I totally get it.
Right.
You know, modifying things to create more emissions is not a good thing. And I can agree that I want to have clean air. I want to have clean air for my children and for generations.
Yes.
The rate that we're destroying the globe is pretty wild to see.
In general, as human beings, we just have found ways to produce more and for less and and we're just absolutely wrecking the planet.
In 50 years, it'll be a sight to see, I think, unless we start slowing down some of this. And, you know, I was raised very like hippie you know, like my parents are definitely hippies. We grew our own food and lived on 80 acres of land in the middle of nowhere in Northern California. And just, you know, I get it. I totally get it. You know, for me, cars just became a passion. And, you know, that was it was the strength I needed to just do what I loved. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I totally understand the opposite parties. But like, let's face it. Let's just think about our 1.6 liter Hondas.
Yes.
And then think about modified emissions devices with our 1.6s. And then think about a modified emissions device on a diesel truck. On a
turbo diesel truck. You know, rolling coal. The dudes that you can hear their turbo spooling and they're dumping out black smoke. And by the way, we're not picking on them. This is literally exponentially worse.
I mean, the fact that you can see with your eyes,
yes,
the amount of emissions coming out of that, you know, 4-inch tailpipe.
Yes. You guys, it's
there's a pretty obvious distinction between the two of those.
And the problem is that under the way both are written, it is effectively defending that ability as much as it is ours.
Right.
So there is no differentiation in the context. So you have very intelligent, able-bodied, sharp-minded scientists, right, who are basically saying it isn't even really about the cars. You have maritime pollution. You have the popularization over the last couple decades of SUVs in America, which are just, you know, 8,000-pound humongoid, you know, bring around your family and toys in style. Those are fucking up the environment way more if we're doing worse. A comparison of vehicle to vehicle. All right. Now, obviously, there are people who are using these off-road only parts on the road. And that's one of the biggest gripes, is that once again, a generalization occurs, is that they know that people do that And the RPM Act to them is evil because it's protecting the people who are going to do all these things and then not just have a dedicated race car. They are looking at it like, well, it's bad all the way across the board, even though part of this is not that big of a deal, but they have no choice but to dislike on the other end of things.
Because there's not there's not a clear and easy way to just divide that into, oh, you have a Miata recreational track car that you like to bring out on the weekends here and there 6 times a year to the racetrack, versus. Well,
there's no way to do that the way it's been written presently.
They haven't found any way to differentiate that.
Yes.
So what they're literally doing is they're grouping your 1.6 liter Miata spec class racer that you, like I said, 6 times a year you take to Buttonwillow or Laguna Seca.
Right.
And they're literally lumping that into these, gross polluting diesel vehicles that are using, like a $400 OBD2 plug-in tuner that's essentially modifying the emissions and eliminating like valve control that's just dumping the waste straight past any device that is cleaning the air.
Correct. Now, you guys, we need to make this very clear here, okay? The RPM Act is an addendum that states that if it is a vehicle used for racing purposes only, in other words, not utilized on your day-to-day streets, okay, it makes it okay. What you guys need to understand is what happens if the RPM Act doesn't become law, okay? This is what the Clean Air Act states, okay? This is what the act itself states. It is, quote, prohibited for any person to manufacture or sell or offer to sell or install any part or component intended for use with or as part of any motor vehicle or motor vehicle engine where a principal effect of the part or component is to bypass, defeat, or render inoperative any emissions control device. Okay, one more time. It is prohibiting any person to manufacture, sell, even offer to sell. So wholesalers, right? Resellers.
Yeah, people that don't even, all they're doing is taking a small percentage off of the top of a sale.
All they do is resell. That means all the wholesale companies are going to get wiped out too, okay? It is prohibited for any person to manufacture. So from the very beginning, it is outright illegal for you to even create it, right? Or sell it, or offer to sell it, or install it. So every shop that installs, every middleman that skims off of your order, every manufacturer that makes the part, and even everything, even
the foreign country that manufactures the part.
You guys, do you understand the scope of what it says? Now, that's not active. That is currently what it says. They weren't enforcing. They weren't talking about it. It's only in 2015 where they branched that into where it affected us. Hence, people coming together, lawsuits, et cetera, the RPM Act. But this is what it states, okay? You can manufacture, sell, offer to sell, or install any part intended for use on a motor vehicle or motor vehicle engine. So it isn't even about, like, if you have an engine on an engine dyno, it's illegal if you're modifying it. It's not even, it doesn't even have to be in the car. Do you understand that? And they are trying to enforce this, okay? Component intended for use with or as part of a motor vehicle or vehicle engine, where the effect of the part is to bypass, defeat, or render inoperative any emissions device. All your standalone ECUs, illegal, okay? Cold air intakes, illegal, right? Bigger injectors, illegal. Just, you name it. It is illegal. And not just illegal, they want to enforce its illegality on a major federal level.
There's also some stuff I read. I don't know if you read some of this, but it was like any modification just in general to a production vehicle.
Yes.
And that's meaning like where are they going to draw the line on that?
Correct. What if you just want to change wheels and tires,
brakes, like, because they're for racing, then the racing is emissions related, and they're basically just trying to tie everything together. Like, could you imagine if you literally couldn't buy like performance tires for your car, and you had to put tires on that they say meet equivalency of OEM spec tire size, width, tread wear, right?
It is and can and will, if we do not actively keep the RPM Act going, it will destroy. You guys, we're talking about tens of thousands of jobs. We're talking about the aftermarket industry is about $1.4 billion annually. Now, the only reason why I bring up the money is that money is exchanged by people. That means companies and jobs. Okay. We're talking about employment globally, but here in the US, it's not like it will just affect us only here. Okay. It will affect a lot of things. Okay. And I feel like it should be pretty fucking obvious how major of a thing this really is. Okay. And so once again, if you guys are just like, I don't even want to listen anymore, I want to do something about it. Like we mentioned in the first segment, SEMA, go to SEMA's website, check out the RPM Act. You can fill out information and go through that method. Votervoice.net is another one, or you can literally pick up the phone. For the same amount of time you would type into Google to find out all this, you can find your local representative's number and email them to death, right? That's a figure of speech. Call them and bombard them with support. Don't curse them out. They're not the ones who wrote the Clean Air Act, okay? Go about it. Organize in an adult fashion, expressing your support of the RPM Act. And because remember, guys, these people are the representatives of what their district, they're the people underneath them. So if the people underneath them that they represent in this legal political arena are telling them, this is what we want, this is how the system works, guys. They will want to or need to represent that. That's how it worked the first time. 200,000 letters.
Yeah. You could just do a letter that says,
I support the RPM Act. I demand
your life, your livelihood is based on it, in the sense of maybe your brother works in the automotive industry and he helps support you. And that's all you really have to say.
And if you don't even want to say that, just say, I believe and want the RPM Act. They just need to hear from you. Don't worry so much about how do I say it? If anything, call and email. Okay? Because you can tweet it. You can Instagram that shit all you want. That's not reaching the representative. Do you guys understand that? Right? We are talking about it here in this method so that if you so choose, it makes you act in the middle of this episode, after, pause it, whatever you want to do, and you can share this with others. But you guys, doing reels and stories on Instagram about it is only going to do so much. We all have to call and email ourselves.
It'll help spread awareness.
But if everyone's like, oh, I'm just going to help spread awareness, then we're all aware, and we'll all be aware when it doesn't pass. You guys understand that? We'll all just be aware when, oh, fuck, the RPM Act didn't pass this time. So we have to not just wish, but will that into existence, because unfortunately, even with the broad generalizations, it will destroy us. Okay. And there are very valid points, like Ryan was talking about. There's the other side to things because, okay, he mentioned diesel. I mean, Ryan, touch on the whole diesel thing because, like we talked about, a truck that just, you see them push into the throttle and just dump out, and they just dump out all that. How the fuck is that comparable to someone putting a short ram intake on a 1.6, 1.8?
Right.
But really under this, comparable. It's all the same.
Yeah, under this act, it wouldn't matter if, you can point the finger all day long at a diesel truck that's highly modified and just is a complete visible gross polluter versus a car with literally like a carb certified cold air intake.
Correct. Now, you guys, just for those of you that are maybe into trucks or whatever, I want you guys to understand we're not
attacking that.
We're not attacking diesel, the whole off-roading, that style of truck for any personal reason, right? But scientists, literally, I mean, you guys can look this up yourself.
Yeah, that's the one I'm on right now.
The Union of Concerned Scientists. That's pretty self-explanatory, okay? Mm-hmm. To reference what they put out an article, okay? You guys, this is they are scientists, okay? For those people that are all hardcore on it needs to be referenceable, it needs to be scientific, right? Okay. The Union of Concerned Scientists, which you can totally look this up. It'll take you 5 seconds to find it. They have a very valid angle.
I got a good one that I want to actually quote.
Go.
So what they say is they have found that roughly 1 in 10 diesels sold within the United States have been tampered emissions.
The emissions. 1 in 10.
So think about that. Basically 1 out of 10 diesel vehicles. And there's fleet vehicles that are, business owned. There's private vehicles. There's cars and there's trucks, right? There's all these different diesel automobiles. Well, they're saying 1 out of every 10.
And that's, by the way, that was the EPA enforcement.
Yep.
Not these random scientists. The EPA has said that about 1 in 10.
1 in 10 is definitely significant. And they said with just over, it equates 500,000 vehicles. And that basically equates to 10 of the Dieselgate scandals. Okay,
do you guys remember Dieselgate? Maybe you didn't know of it as Dieselgate, but that whole thing with Volkswagen. Does it ring a bell?
Essentially correct me if I'm wrong with this.
Okay.
But from what I gathered, Volkswagen essentially couldn't pass their emissions testing.
Okay.
So they mapped the ECU in a way that they did pass.
Yes.
And then they sold the vehicles back tuned
the other way. Yeah.
So essentially they did the whole smog test trick, if you will, and then they released the vehicles with not the same pollution numbers. So they were, and really, I mean, for Volkswagen to do that with the amount of vehicles that were sold
pretty
that
crazy
way, it was just a slap on the wrist.
Which is why they called it Dieselgate, because
it was a huge thing. And
there's a little reference, Dieselgate. Watergate. If you got, I mean, many of you guys would be like, what the fuck is Watergate?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if you got time, look up Watergate. It was one of the biggest scandals in American history, but hence the gate thing. So if you're like Dieselgate, I don't get it. It's just a play off of Watergate. But the point is
huge scandal with a slap on the wrist.
Huge scandal. And in the context of what we're talking about, it was a massive pollution scandal. So forget the trickery and all that shit. We're talking about how it was an incredibly massive pollution scandal because those emissions parameters exist for a reason, and the volume of vehicles they sold that were violating that, they were able to quantify.
And they're an OEM. They should know better. Like, take the loss, take the hit, make it right. But no, they just kind of tried to slide it under, and they were literally just a slap on the wrist. Don't do it again. Here's a small fine. And it's like,
I mean, small was,
oh yeah. I mean, small in relative size to the size of the business.
But what we're talking about here is the biggest automotive pollution scandal, in that sense ever.
Yeah.
And the pollution was incredible in the context of the volume of all these vehicles. And from this EPA finding, from the 1 in 10 diesel vehicles that are modified, the pollution from those 1 in 10, or about 500,000 vehicles,
is 10 Watergate. It's 10
at least 10 Dieselgate scandals worth of pollution. For whatever that means to you, there is real issue with the fact that these big ass diesel monsters, but just like us, let's be real, right? Just like us, they modify to get power.
Right.
Now on them, they can get 50, 100 horsepower, foot-pounds of torque instantly.
Like with a little OBD2.
Right. Just a little thing. But regardless, whether we make 5 horsepower or you make 500 more by messing with the turbos of your diesel, the point is that to the person who cares about pollution, they are even acknowledging, these are scientists who are even acknowledging that the whole car thing is like over here. We're talking about these diesels and SEMA and the RPM Act, and they're bitter and angry with SEMA and the RPM Act because it is effectively protecting the ability for the diesel trucks to do that. They're not supposed to do that and then be on the street, just like we're not supposed to modify our cars and be on the street. So like we're talking about, you be fair and look at the other side. They're like, we don't even really care about the car thing. We're talking about these trucks that the RPM Act defends.
Yeah, they even mention like Miata circuit cars and occasional like weekend track cars.
They don't. They're like,
it's
we're
like not
even,
really.
That's not even really what we're talking about. We're talking about the diesel, But here's the thing: the RPM Act, in the way that it is, for us, is absolutely, utterly crucial, and it does protect trucking and trucks as well. Mm-hmm. So do we understand why other people might be like, screw the RPM Act? Sure, but the way that the expansion starting 2015 about making it illegal to manufacture, sell, install, or anything for vehicles that were started as a street-going vehicle,
streetcar,
which is everything. And that's just not okay, because you're going to wipe out. There are 1,300-ish tracks in the US. All right. All of us watching right now, we could think of 5, 7, 10 different racing series, from small time enthusiast grassroots to big time, that will all become illegal instantly. The scope of this is not small, and it is a problem of epic proportions. As silly and kind of cheesy as that sounds, it is a huge thing. I mean, we were talking about it. That will make Rywire an illegal company. Think about that. It would make his company illegal because it makes wiring that changes things. Okay? A wheel and tire company that is altering, because remember, you guys, they can measure how much fuel economy. You know how when you change wheels and tire size, it changes your gearing, all that stuff that falls under this. You understand that, right? Oh, that will burn more fuel. You know how people do that to their trucks?
Yeah.
You get worse gas mileage. That's part of this.
Yeah. Cause they don't want, some of these muscle cars and stuff, they'll adjust their rear end gear ratios. Sure. And that all is, equal to the size of the wheel and tire and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, you can effectively change the size of your wheel, which changes your gear ratio,
yes,
which changes your, RPM cruising speed, which changes your emissions. And that's all under the same umbrella.
All of it. It can literally go down to your wheels and tires, right? And to whatever other extent, okay? And we're talking about addressing it not after the fact. You have it, you bought it somehow, somewhere. No. The manufacturing of it, right? The sale of it, the intent to sell. It sounds like fucking narcotics. It sounds like drugs.
It's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is where we are. So this is not a pause car talk. And immediately right now, go to SEMA's website, SEMA RPM Act, votervoice.net. You want to read more about it on your own? Google it, right now, because it's crucial, right? It is absolutely imperative that it's not about sharing and resharing alone. We have to actually contact your representative. Do it via email. We send each other's guys. We all can access our email from our phones. We text each other all day long. We're on IG. Come on. Just take a few moments, contact your representative, and let them know that you demand the support of the RPM Act. If you want to be specific, your freedom, your livelihood, your fun, your recreation, whatever, but it's all about the RPM Act right now. Whether we like all the bubbles that get kind of underneath one roof or not, there's no other option.
Yeah.
We have to go all in on the RPM Act and support it. So,
Have you seen that South Park episode where that guy's like, They took our jobs. They dirk-a-dur. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think you should pause the episode right now and you need to look up that South Park because it's pretty good.
What is it called?
But that's all that I can think about right now.
A dirk-a-dur?
A dirk-a-dur. Because this guy, this like redneck hillbilly, is like a dirk-a-dur, and he's trying to say they took our jobs, and essentially it's all about. So
just doing it in like the low to high key racist way that South Park does things.
Yeah.
Okay. So
but like this whole time, all I can think about is a dirk-a-dur.
Are you guys South Park?
I think it's just dirk-a-dur.
I'm literally I'm on YouTube. South Park Dirka. I see Dirk-a-dur.
Dirk-a-dur.
I thought that you were just...
No, click it. We can't get in trouble for playing YouTube on YouTube, can we? Probably can. But we don't really have that many followers, so we're okay.
Just the thumbnails are racist looking.
Oh, yeah. It's great, though.
Okay.
You guys have to...
If you guys know about South Park, Dirk-a-dur. I don't, and I guess I'm going to watch it in a little bit. But you know, like, I mean, okay. All jokes aside, I mean, Ryan, like, what are your final thoughts and perspectives on this whole scenario?
I don't really want to like try to figure out what else I'm going to do with my life because I pretty much thought that I already knew what I was going to do.
Right, and are doing it.
And I'm doing it.
Okay, I like that answer because it's very real, it's very personal, is that if his company is... Because no one wants to deal with lawsuits or fines, right? So if it comes to that, he's going to have to literally figure out an entirely new livelihood, which is wild. Okay,
I couldn't even like fathom having to do that.
Right. And you know, once again, this isn't like, oh damn, it's going to be even harder to modify our cars in California. You guys, please do not allow this whole Car Talk episode to let you leave thinking that it's that. It is not that. The ability and its eventual reach is going to wipe out this entire industry in the United States, and however we can hypothesize that will affect the global automotive industry.
This could be a gateway to a lot of different things.
For sure. But we are talking about the manufacture, sale, intent to sell, any of that. It becomes illegal. And the Clean Air Act, once again, has been around for 50 plus years, but it was only in 2015 that ended up crossing over into these dangerous waters. Subsequently, the RPM Act came to, in this context, save our entire industry, our ability to even have an industry, much less the industry. So, you guys, please take the time, share this, episode so people can hear this conversation, or just immediately go spend 45 seconds to find the right contact information and or read a little bit more about it on your own. And it does not stop with liking or sharing or subscribing and all the stuff we say. It isn't even about that. It is about contacting the representative and specifically stating that you want the RPM Act to thrive and to be passed. And they will, like they did the first time, 200,000 plus people, but it's being fought, and here we are again. So we have to fight in the manner in which that system works, and that would be contacting the representative. Okay? So if you guys have any other questions, put it in the comments below. We'll answer them to the best of our ability. We're reading, on just as much as you guys are, but please, don't hesitate. Share with us any perspectives or information you find as up to date as, because things can change from when this episode drops. So whatever the case may be, you guys, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here with us. And once again, I don't care if it sounds just, you guys, this is not just like, oh, damn, that's crazy, and then you stop. You have to actually do something about this, because you can be all upset about it and rant about it on your social media or a live stream or to the homies or in the group text all you want. That does not a fucking thing. You literally have to go about it through the political channel to actually have your voice heard. You guys with me? All right.
Dirk-a-dur.
Oh my God. We appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you on the next episode of Car Talk.